In the past year, I have felt an even greater sense of urgency to go public and help reinforce that there is hope for humanity. We are remembering new doorways, new evolutionary pathways, and new vistas of possibility for shifting into fulfillment of our original potential, our original human design. The only requirement is letting go of all that we thought we knew from the past. Everything I share has come from what I learned over my lifetime, from non-human intelligence. They commune through frequency. I'm here as one experiencer, to add to the growing number of voices who speak from actual and who speak from feeling, that magical gift of emotions all humans have built into their incredible design. This gift is greatly devalued and completely misunderstood in this world. It was through my contact that it became clear. Humans have forgotten that their feeling nature is actually their superpower. It's time to give ourselves permission to fully be who we are. It takes courage, but I'm here to tell you how important it is to develop your inner courage now, to meet yourselves and your maker within, and dance on the darker side of holiness, so we can find our way to the heart again and transform this world. Contrary to what we've been taught, when we're engaged in our natural, clear, feeling instincts, we simply know what's true.
There you are, behind every set of eyes I see today. And here you are, the passion in the music that carries us away. I've seen the angel dancing on the darker side of holiness, leading me through the shadows until I find I am heaven in the end.
They said, knowing what you feel leads to feeling what you know. I don't use my energy to convince the intellect anymore. I'm here to ignite your hearts and encourage you to simply feel again, just as my visitors did for me. This is an important key for us, not only in the ongoing exploration of consciousness, but for the very future of humanity. Experiencers of more cannot be contained within bubbles of belief and theory. We've shattered that bubble. We've experienced contact and, for some of us, ongoing communion. We cannot afford to dismiss emerging voices in this arena simply because it doesn't fit into a current or popular model of understanding. Everything is changing, and it's changing quite rapidly. The frequency intelligence that contacted me repeatedly throughout my life showed me through feeling visions as a child, then in 1987, and numerous times since, that much of what we're witnessing in our world now would be happening at this timing.
Each individual heart will make a choice. Will you continue believing that you are powerless and disconnected from your universal source, or will you fully feel who you are, reclaim, and reactivate your exquisite design? In other words, how do we bridge the distance between the movie screen that we've become so dependent upon to inform us and our own hearts and bodies that sit in the seats into one now streaming, perfectly harmonized, synchronous, passionate, interconnected life? I found that resonance was key to understanding this important integration. I kept journals of my contact experiences over a few decades, and it was around 12 years ago that I was shown many things about the power of our emotional nature, and that it is key to essentially coming back online with the universe. The method I was shown sounds pretty basic and simple when put in words, but what I found with some people I shared it with was an unusual level of resistance when it came to applying these tools to excavate the emotional debris that blocks us from our full connection to all that is. It's almost like people know innately that if they begin to apply honesty and truly feel what has been suppressed within, their lives may drastically change. Jobs, relationships, status, identities. It seems we've invested far too much energy in keeping up appearances, keeping things under control, and fitting into the routine at all cost. This is the timing on earth, an opportunity for truth and balance to be restored, firstly, within. There's no need to worry about the outer world. It perfectly reflects our own state of balance or imbalance with ourselves and the earth. If we carry within us our unconscious, unhealed traumas from the past, we will unknowingly allow fear to fill in the blanks, the missing pieces, when things don't make sense here. When we resonate with fear, we blame others and continue to attract this disconnected, victim-oriented, violent way of life. It reinforces the belief that it's every man for himself and it's a game we must fight to win. And this, by the way, is the current blockbuster movie in our collective theater right now, resonating with being a victim, resonating with power struggles. If we are not in the know, everything becomes an externalized fight to defend a wounded, fearful heart who has simply forgotten what love feels like. Or we internalize the pain and decide that there's something wrong with us, gravitating to substance abuse and/or suicide. But if we've had the courage to heal, whether it felt like a choice or it felt forced upon us, and we're actively seeing and releasing all that is blocking the doorway to our true essence, we begin to feel the love of the universe moving in our hearts and bodies, reigniting a beautiful love affair with our Creator. This is the awakening, the remembrance of love. But sometimes it gets messy. In the beginning, it gets confusing when we feel alone with it, and when we're constantly being fed the old stories and scripts in the outer world. We find ourselves in a theater watching the same violent movie that we have long become disinterested in. We may still be in that theater, but we're not of it. This is the real work now, being in the world, but not of it. This stage of integration can be very challenging, but know that it doesn't last forever. It's a temporary stage in our collective awakening. Trust that you are not alone. There are many now who are awake, who've had the transformational events, which are essentially memos from the soul that it's time. They are true spiritual warriors and healers that anchor here to support those who choose to heal, recover, and reorient to our feeling, knowing operating system, a natural state of consciousness where you always know what you need to know without ever looking at that old screen again. So we may have an experience and long to remain in sync with that love that we know we felt swirling within, but we find that it becomes exhausting to hold that harmonic balance and still keep a consistent face and routine for others in our lives. Many people around us still defer to the programming, to the old movies. But if we're paying attention, we notice that sometimes we also add a bit of energy into perpetuating the characters and storylines. We can't just blame it all on those people that we're waiting on to awaken. We've been complicit too. This is what must come to an end if we truly want to awaken into our wholeness, and from this new platform of wholeness, transform our world. It's time to tell the truth. Not just a special narrative that runs inside our heads or when we're meeting online with our special secret clubs, but out loud and with each other all the time. And I'm not talking about sharing what we think is true, but rather what we feel and know is true. And that takes a little bit more effort to locate this inner truth. All of what I share now is from the integration of these openings, these downloads I received over the years. It's been my whole life, and I'm still integrating it, owning it, and articulating it. So here's the main scoop. If we want our world to be real, we need to be real. Another important note that is somewhat related is the conversation about artificial intelligence and also plans for more sophisticated frequency-based technologies. I just wanted to say that I have come to understand that from this inner intelligence, that while there are benevolent uses in employing AI, we must be very, very careful now. I was informed that these outer technologies, while they try, cannot even come close to the power of our own innate capacities. In other words, it's vital to restore our whole consciousness before we make dangerous decisions based on a fragment of our functioning awareness. Let us unearth the fullness of our own intelligence first, before we agree, yet again, that we need these technologies to help or improve our lives here. They may certainly enhance our reality at some point, but should not be a substitute for what we have programmed out of our consciousness in order to fit into this narrow reality. Many of us are so far removed from our original selves that we have no idea who we are, unless it's associated with our jobs, our roles in society, politics, education, and in our families. We rationalize that we have to make these sacrifices, be miserable. We have to commute to work and sit in gridlock traffic to make money and feed our families. Hey, this is life, right? We can't risk our reputations to interrupt that movie that the rest of the world finds so hypnotic. The movie that's literally killing us. Because if we challenged it, we're afraid they would banish us from the theater and call us insane. I say, great. But then all that we've worked so hard for to force things to work within the given context would be lost. Or so we think. Then where would we be? I know where we'd be. I've lived there my whole life, in the in-between, neither fully in one world or the other, wondering if others would join me after the interruptions in their highly conditioned lives. And this is what is happening now. But we're not seeing a lot of these news stories on the screens right now. Why? Because we need to wake up. Right where we are. Embody our original passionate self that knows why we are here. Look each other in the eye again. Love each other and make this happen ourselves. No one is coming out of the movie screen to save us. Whether the hero is a religious savior, aliens, Captain America, or Wonder Woman. The Hopi knew we are the ones we've been waiting for. Let that really sink in. I know it's been a popular meme, but it's so very true. Another very true saying, a popular saying, is these things and greater shall ye do. Remember, the hero arrives within. In preparation for this event, I began to ponder yet again how to translate these mystical states. The experience is an ongoing integration of high frequency contact into words for this audience. And keeping with my analogy, in the past, most seekers as well as authorities on these subjects of interest could only perceive through the language provided by the given scientific, religious, or New Age movies in their lives. I tried watching those movies and making them my own, but I took issue with worshiping people or ideas outside of me when I felt it deeply within, original, alive, and wanting to engage not only with me, but through me, with my world. I can be greatly inspired by any of these people or groups, but I had a different viewpoint, and I shared it through music.
So wake up to heaven on earth. This is it. This is the truth. This is the gift, the breakthrough, and there's no need to worship what already is in you. It's in you. It's in you.
Recently, I had a brilliant idea born from my intellect. I will make a concerted effort to learn the language of the scientific community so that maybe, just maybe, after 50 plus years of trying to explain these events with my untrained vocabulary, someone might hear me. Someone whose train might be traveling through the fog on a different track, let's say a scientific track, but still might hear the echoes of a different kind of train and a different kind of train whistle moving in the same direction. It might benefit both trains to make contact with each other, to compare notes perhaps, to help each other navigate through the fog. This is personal for me. This isn't just another objective study in the mechanics of consciousness. It's subjective. I call it actual and direct. And I'm still not clear why this has so little value in our sciences. This is what makes it all the more difficult for experiencers to speak out loud about it in our communities, which is something I want to change. So with very little reflection from a human who'd been here too, I could not define what was happening to me in context of the known world. And was there an existing definition for me in the known world? I certainly read a lot at the time, and while I discovered glimpses of it in others' material, I found no pre-existing models or labels that I could conveniently attach myself to. And just feel like I could wash my hands of it and the confusion away so I could fit back into the world again. But I had experienced the lifting of the fog, a new reference point, and I certainly preferred that state of consciousness. If these experiences had ever stopped, perhaps I could have reoriented to the smallness again, or successfully cut off these parts of myself that clearly didn't fit here. But it didn't stop. It was never fully about UFOs. It wasn't completely about ETs abducting me or my giving birth to hybrid babies. It wasn't New Age or any religion at all. It wasn't even fully like the accounts of mostly men who'd recorded Kundalini events. It was all of these things, but different. The more that occurred in this way, the more distant and invisible I felt from those around me. I was a white, Western, female human who was given very little value in the American order of things to begin with. Who would listen to this? As the experiences continued, I was expanded further into the frequencies, which seemed to force more and more growth. At a certain point, there was no going back. I had to actively integrate more of me. Alone in society and culture, yet feeling deeply connected and guided by this love. that was so beautiful at times that all I could do was weep and fall to my knees. I couldn't find the theater that was playing that movie anywhere. I'm not saying that there aren't good people out there doing great work, but at the time, the given ways of explaining these events, explaining love beyond a romantic context and how it was changing me, were utterly inadequate. I even encourage other experiencers now to be careful not to drop yourself in your encounters into existing boxes. I know the temptation to want to stop that uncomfortable feeling of the unexplained and being different. I know how badly we just want to build another story using whatever the jargon and perspectives of whatever New Age or UFO group club we've been invited into. Because that was where we could feel like maybe we could be okay with community. So the actual experience can get reduced to fit into something much smaller than it actually is in order to align with whatever the intentions are of the group. The egoic mind hates the unknown. It hates being without approved labels and definitions. And that's when we know we're bumping up against our programming. When we can't just let something be what it is without looking to the 24-hour news channel to define it for us. Later, I was guided within to stop trying to fit somewhere, anywhere. This, I was informed, was so that I could allow something original to occur. To own it. To be the author of my own life. The authority, without influence, without comparison to existing voices and models in the studies of consciousness. So whether I learn the language of quantum physics or not, to help bridge to the others who have set a very specific course with very specific parameters, this is happening. This is important. This goes beyond belief and theory. You need to feel what you're connected to. It will change you. It will bring the movie screen and our hearts, minds, and bodies into one thing, into the present, into presence with each other, with our planet and all of the natural world. If it happened to me, it can happen to you. I couldn't figure out why this cosmic intelligence would pick someone like me to nurture and grow through the years and give voice to these messages about humanity's evolution, about what lies beyond this strangely small reality. I never completed a college degree. And even following my initiation in 2002 on the sacred Mayan fire path in Tikal, Guatemala, I chose not to take the title or practice the counting of the days. I felt that it was time to stop keeping time. We've already arrived. We've arrived at that place in the calendar that the Mayans pointed to. And I value the Mayan culture and the teachings very much. I'm thankful for all I learned from my teachers, but I knew myself and my soul as an artist, a mystic, and a truth teller. After my initiation fire, I simply climbed to the top of the Temple of the Jaguar, and I spoke as an equal with all of creation. I said, I am here. I'm ready. Just let me know how I can help. 3 years later, when the messages began to arrive, it was all so confusing to me. And I always felt so inept because even though I tried hard to share this data, I could never seem to fully transfer all the layers of the massive downloads of feeling, knowing data into something mental or dramatic or palatable or even profoundly sacred. But people, I found, were generally not interested in what I was learning about turning the attention within and willing to be honest about their lives and what they were feeling. The movies on the screen were just too mesmerizing. For centuries, the wisdom of this magnetic feminine resonance remained unstructured, watery, and mostly invisible to the masses. And it hasn't exactly been welcomed here. She has been banished and demonized. And from my vantage point, I clearly get why. This feminine voice says that it's here and it's already within you. But that would require your engagement with it. It would require feeling and healing, which means actively breaking through the prison walls of programming. Of course, it's about facing all of your unconscious demons and the pockets of pain that they feed upon, but I've noticed something far more alarming with some people. The glaze that comes over the eyes, or the glitchy eye movements that occur when I speak of consciousness around feelings, and I am not kidding. And yes, it's like a glitch in the matrix. For some, it's far easier to just keep creating new stories, new identities, new clothing to wear, than to face the fears and rediscover the grace that lies beneath all the pain and the misunderstanding of adapting to a cold and confusing world. Believe me, I can't even begin to find the right words to tell you how freeing this process is. Except that it's well worth the journey. And once you engage with it, the core within that connects you to the heart of heaven and the heart of earth, you will find that this healing and unfolding was never as scary as you thought it would be. And life begins to make far more sense. By the way, the Maya never predicted an end of the world in 2012. It was the end of a major cycle, a grand phase in the cosmic wheel, a time that has potential for great destruction or massive transformation. We're waking up. We're remembering. Instead of adapting to smallness over the previous centuries, we will now launch into expansion and experience the joys of adapting to our greater identity and gifts. It's an important choice for all of us now, to continue to crouch and hide, or to courageously emerge, fully live and fly. What I learned about the divine or sacred feminine is the quote, return of it is when the heart is innocently engaged and in sync with the vibrational truth of who we are. These frequencies will naturally move us to blossom, just like a rose, with no thought, no hierarchy, no mechanical equations, no need to study for years to figure it out. It just grows and blossoms with the love of the sun, the water, the soil, and the breeze. It's effortless, and it's your true and total identity. The balance that comes from the fusion of the natural world, the elements, and the whole brain masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves. The guidance has been to integrate our whole nature right where we are and to make it all one thing. No more compartmentalization of our roles or identities here. This is where the oneness begins. Each of us making our lives one with our own heart, our unique passions, our place on the planet, and with our communities. Don't watch and wait for the screen to provide this information. Again, it arrives within you. These states of consciousness must be directly experienced in order to fully understand the inevitable reorientation that occurs. When this mind-shattering energy meets matter, our very own physical bodies, everything shifts. And the doorway I was shown is in consciously inviting all of your feelings into your body, into present moment attention. When this immense love is also infused into matter, into our bodies, this is when we feel and know the truth that sets us free. In my experience, it seems that sound and resonance is the language of the cosmos, the earth, and of our source. It's our language too. It feels in my body that I'm fully connected with an infinite field of love. I am that love and I relate to that love at the same time. It fills my body. It feels magnetic. It feels like light and sound at the same time. It's music. In the late 1980s and 90s, I was a singer and fronted a few rock, top 40, and original music bands in Southern California. In the late 90s, after a dark night of the soul that culminated in Coyopa, it's more commonly known as Kundalini. I prefer the Mayan term, which I address further in the book. But at this time, the energies began arriving through this opening that occurred to essentially collaborate musically. There were downloads of both melodies and lyrics, and I had to quickly relearn how to play the piano, so that I'd only dabbled with it as a child, so that I could capture the music that was coming. In hindsight, it's clear that music and poetry became my first sound translation of this massive love. I didn't write the music for others. I wrote it for me, and I invited others into my resonance.
The voice of my heart has always known, lifting me till I decide. Watch me fly when you look to the sky. Your heart flutters in time. Do you ever wonder why? It's here you feel alive. When will you decide to fly? This is the place they all fear. These are the words they won't hear. This is the truth drawing near. This is the place of nothing.
Creative process helped me to reflect, to heal, to unravel, and give voice to the changes that were happening to me. They were dialogues, essentially, with this presence, a feminine presence.
Pieces of me, and I will free all the pieces of me. No matter anyway, we have arrived, and there's an undeniable sign. This is an undeniable time to live. You're unforgettable, credible. It's just inevitable.
I perform these songs in clubs, house concerts, and New Age churches. Some people seemed agitated that they couldn't place me into a clear genre of music. Others had spontaneous emotional responses they would later demand an explanation for. Maybe it helped them remember things that they had long forgotten too. I hope so. For me, this music is about the rekindling of the greatest love affair ever.
My heart will hold you. Reach for me when you feel alone. My love will fold you now. Think of me and you'll be all.
Ultimately, I wrote, recorded, and performed 3 musical CDs of translations of what I was experiencing, communing with and integrating, like an artist does. 7 years later, around 2005, I began translating in a different way. I cannot tell you how this works. There is no thinking mind involved in how it's translated. Some call this channeling. Okay, that's a word from the past with many connotations. Yet another category I never felt I fully fit into. I believe that we all channel. Whenever we're completely absorbed in the moment and we're creating something with our passionate hearts, we are channeling. They showed me how to enter this state of consciousness, and that a better word for it might be communion. The connection occurred through awareness and the honest voicing of my feelings and emotions. It seemed to generate a vibrational field like music, and soon I would feel synchronized or harmonized with a very large song. I was asked to share this emotional meditative approach. In April of 2009, this intelligence was informing me about this natural way of perceiving and how communion works. And I'll share a clip of this translation.
Heart and heart consciousness is spherical. Perception with the heart is an actual feeling in the human physicality of instant understanding through a filling in of the sphere. There may be color definition. There may be sound. There is the touch, that which is palpable to your skin, to your cells, to your bones, your blood. There is a rushing in, a filling in of understanding. And this occurs with not one single thought. There may be thought after the understanding. But know that thought comes in mostly as a way to translate from spherical to linear.
What I was taught through these visitations was that unless we restore our full feeling nature, we will never know this resonant intelligence within us, connecting us to all its cosmic forms that reside and operate in pure love. And it seems love is the missing piece in almost everything that we were told here. Without this reactivation of our hearts, the rebalancing of our divine feminine self, and this goes for any gender you identify with, we will continue to loop in the madness of this echo chamber, trapped in a smaller bandwidth of consciousness, with only a fragment of our original design being utilized, which is a feedback loop. This is all there is, so deal with it. Well, I was getting different information. I would enter these states and these kinds of messages would come through me. This was an earlier recording from Christmas Day, 2005.
You do not need your ears to hear the sounds. Your ears are only one way to receive the fullness of the song. The senses in which we speak of, the senses that are utilized to receive the song, are senses that you have purposely not valued in this earth experience. You are reactivating these senses at this time. Some of you are experiencing this extra sensory approach to perception as we speak. You may ask, how might I activate these extra senses? It is important to view these senses as natural to your being, not as something outside the realm of what is natural for you, but to invite your natural skills and talents to be present with you in your consciousness here. It does require an invitation, a conscious invitation from you to begin to experience more of the song that you are and that you express in this world in which you are living. The sounds initially may feel foreign, for you will practice, you will apply these extrasensory gifts and talents and skills. As a child first learns that they can stand on their 2 feet and take steps It is a foreign feeling, and yet it is exhilarating at the same time. And you must give yourselves permission to be more, to hear more, to see more, to be more. For that is the doorway to your fullness, giving oneself permission to be fulfilled. To give oneself permission also to stumble here and there. Watch a child learning to walk. There may be some frustration when things don't always work, for you are trying many different approaches and finding what works for you, what avenue, where to place your feet and how. Give yourselves permission to fall down here and there, for you are trying something new to your physical experience here.
In my book, Koyopa Contact Within, I take you through an unusual life. My earliest memories include the usual kinds: riding my bicycle, being mercilessly teased by my brothers, going on cross-country family vacations, and then there were the numerous meetings with the tall, bright, shiny, goldish white beings. Later, I called them angels, because I heard my mother and others in my life talk about beautiful beings that loved us and cared for us, that we don't always see, but if we prayed hard enough in just the right way, they would maybe help us out of difficult situations. But I noticed that we could only speak of them in context of church and religion. It wasn't recommended that we speak of such things in our everyday lives. In my world, it all made sense, and it was all so perfect until one day in the sandbox. My visitors informed me that they would be leaving for a time, and that I needed to adapt, to learn how to live like those around me. And one day, when I was older, they would return in a different way. I cried, of course. The pain in my heart and body was immense and very real. I couldn't imagine living without this love, without this friendship and connection. Somehow I understood through their unique vibrational language that we would never truly part, and they kept their word. I feel they are me and I am them. It's a blending of consciousness. And now is the time for every one of us to recall from within our own superpowers and to blend with the more of who we truly are. We see what happens when we sleep. This planet needs us to be awake. And in our fullness now, we have important work to do. I wanted to let you know that these messages all have a harmonic meditative rhythm that I encourage people when they hear these messages to receive through the heart. This is a different kind of channeling. It's not speaking to your analytical mind, it's speaking to your heart. I'm going to leave you with a short clip.
So while you may not have example, and you fear that there is no way that humanity can survive and recreate itself without these orders in place, you are mistaken. There is a natural way of being in the heart consciousness, with more of yourselves present. It is a natural way of being, and it is based on love. You have been taught, you have been conditioned that love is weak. Now, if you were taught of the true power of love and embodying this love that is who you are, your universal identity, then you would completely disrupt what was in place to control. We do not wish to dwell on what occurred in the past. It is important that it is acknowledged and integrated. Now it is time to integrate your natural state. This does not come with the explanations that the mind and the intellect demand. It is an expansion into more, the memory of more, the identification of more, and then you practice this power on earth. Support each other in this in-between feeling stage. Understand that it is not going to make sense. Let go of the need for it to make sense in terms of your past. You are letting go of the past. You are letting go of the limitations. You are letting go of your constant adaptation to smallness. The reversal has occurred. At the very least, be willing to turn in the direction of your expansion. To trust that with the embodiment of more and more individuals embracing their soul and their natural state and acting on this with feet on earth, understand that it is a rapid momentum into this new way of being, this expanded way of being on earth.
I'm not the same. I am forever changed. My beloved is gone to stay.